Collins realized, horrified, that Jamie had been drugging his father each night, guaranteeing he would sleep deeply and undisturbed. The breakthrough came when an advanced second analysis of Mark's car revealed traces of DNA from all 5 missing victims, along with blood that hadn't appeared in the initial test. This discovery deepened the mystery, suggesting that blood from the victims was in Mark's car, yet Mark was under constant surveillance and was so heavily sedated that he lost consciousness every night. Who was driving his car and committing murders? The surveillance team confirmed that Mark never left his house after midnight, yet someone was using his vehicle to commit crimes, most likely Jimmy. On one night at 2:47 a.m., thermal camera footage showed Jimmy moving out of the Davidson's house, taking keys, then returning 20 minutes later and disappearing into the back room, prompting Detective Collins to realize that Jimmy, the perfect son who sneaked out at midnight while his father was unconscious, was involved. But where was he going, and how did it connect to the missing girls? The answer emerged when the team reviewed traffic camera footage between the Davidson house and the locations where the victims vanished in the early morning hours. They spotted Mark's distinctive blue Toyota Corolla passing through Manchester, but the driver in the footage wasn't Mark. It was Jimmy. Detective Collins decided to confront Mark and presented him with the evidence: the sedative-laced sleep, the surveillance footage, and the blood evidence in Mark's car. Mark was devastated to learn that his son had been drugging him to kill people while he was asleep, and that he had unknowingly been complicit in his son's crimes. Mark initially tried to defend his son, refusing to see him as a murderer, but after being convinced, especially by Collins, that keeping Jimmy out could lead to worse crimes and more deaths, he agreed that Jimmy needed to be imprisoned. Mark was forced to act as if everything was normal, taking his medication as instructed on the day after the holiday, knowing his house was rigged with hidden cameras and tracking devices monitored by a dedicated police team. As he pretended to sleep, his heart pounding with fear for his son's future, the team tracked Jimmy's movements. At exactly 2:30 a.m., Jimmy was seen walking through the house, passing his father's door, grabbing keys, and then the front door closing and opening again for 45 minutes. Mark lay in bed, imagining the horrors his son might commit in that time. Meanwhile, Collins and her team tracked Mark's car through Manchester toward an abandoned amusement area where the girls had disappeared. They saw Jimmy secretly using his father's phone and accepting a ride from a 19-year-old college student named Amy Patterson, who sat in the back seat of the Toyota. Unbeknownst to her, the driver was not Mark, but a 16-year-old serial killer using his father's identity to lure and murder young girls in Manchester. Jimmy took Amy to a deserted industrial area where the police, prepared and armed, swiftly intervened. They arrested Jimmy as he entered the abandoned garage, saving Amy, who was shaken but unharmed. When Detective Collins looked inside the car, she saw that Jimmy was no longer the polite, obedient student she had met, but a cold, predatory predator, manipulating everything around him with his deadly tools. His reaction upon being apprehended was eerily calm. No surprise, no remorse, his mind seemingly at ease, as if waiting for the moment he was caught. He wondered when they would understand him and admitted, disturbingly simply, that he wanted to see what it felt like to have complete control over someone, to make them trust him, and then realize they were going to die. Jimmy showed no empathy for his victims and no remorse for the families he destroyed. His father, Mark, whose life had been shattered, believed he was raising a loving, successful son, only to discover he had lived with a manipulative killer who drugged him and used him as an unwitting accomplice. During the trial, the 16-year-old Jimmy was tried as an adult due to the severity and premeditation of his crimes, which included 8 murders with meticulously planned methods. The defense argued that Jimmy was mentally ill, but the prosecution's evaluation proved he understood right from wrong and deliberately chose evil. Jimmy was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Mark, meanwhile, continued his life in disbelief, unable to comprehend what had happened.